Today I'm joined by brothers Kendrick and Nick Sanker. Kendrick is the founder of Sanker Financial, a financial planning and wealth management company that serves over 500 households across 32 states and 5 countries. Nick is an analyst for private equity firm Iron Path Capital, while also embracing entrepreneurship as the founding owner of Sanker Media. Both played football in college, Kendrick at Hampton University and Nick at Princeton. Both are devoted to their families, their clients, and their Lord Jesus Christ. Wearing big smiles wherever they go, let's give a warm entering the arena welcome to big brother Kendrick, and now 1 year completed in the workforce, Nicholas. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Nick, you're closing on your first home on Monday.
Yeah, super excited.
That's wild. 2 questions.
Yeah.
What finally made the numbers make sense? Why did you buy instead of rent? And the second question, whose blessing mattered more, your mother's or your financial analyst, financial planner, big brother?
I think for me, the numbers started to make a lot more sense when I was able to have a roommate to live with me. I think that in order to do that, I don't know if I would have made this purchase without having that. So that's the first thing. I think second thing is like having a year in your first year bonus, you have a little more cash so you can actually do the down payment. So until now, I didn't have any cash to do a down payment in order to get this house, to get the down payment, the closing costs, all those things. So one of my coworkers is going to live with me, which basically divides the mortgage in half, and then have your first year bonus to knock out all those initial upfront costs. But I've always wanted to buy. I like the feeling of ownership, to feel like it's my space. And then I also have always kind of had an internal opposition to just throwing what I kind of felt like was throwing away money. Now, you do want to make the numbers make sense with, you don't want to just be throwing all your money towards interest. But this house also has opportunities to create some value, which I think was a big selling point. It has an unfinished basement and a couple other opportunities that could make it have an extra bedroom and bathroom, and then a couple other simpler upgrades throughout the rest of the home. So I thought there was a chance to provide or create some equity value inside the house, and make it a worthwhile return on investment, even if I'm there only for a couple of years rather than being there for 30 years and expected this to be my final home.
Solicited or unsolicited, what advice did your big brother give you? This is a gentleman that's been 10 years plus in the world of finance and has given advice to a lot of people, even outside the family.
I think one of the big things was just making sure that I have the basics of like an emergency fund, and making sure that I'm prepared for those kind of situations is one. And then two, like he had a roommate for a while, and really I think that encouraged me to be open to that rather than like I just need my own space, and not to rush those things. So those would be 2 big things I think that he definitely instilled in me.
Kendrick, does your younger brother listen to your advice, or just does he generally ignore it?
It is a 50-50.
50-50 deal?
50.
You don't own, you rent.
I do.
Why do you rent, and why does it make sense for you versus what Nick's doing?
Yeah. I look at it from different perspectives on the time that I rented during COVID, where a lot of social capital wasn't abundant. So just being around a roommate and a place that was low cost, being around in a neighborhood that was full of people where I could still feel integrated in the community. I guess another perspective for me, when I started Sanker Financial, I wasn't a W-2 employee, nor did I have a bonus like Nicholas Sanker. And so a lot of my money got reinvested not into a real estate opportunity, but the business that I was starting. And so being able to hire was like my first major purchase at that time of his age. Like my first hire was not cheap. She was a young lady that had a very good base salary. And so different perspectives. I took a different initiative to reinvest back into Sanker Financial. And I think the last thing I would say is just As an entrepreneur, now that's 32, still renting. When I rent, I look at opportunities of who's in this building that I can connect with, network with, meet. What connections can I make there to make the cost make sense? And so where I live in DC in Navy Yard, I've been able to meet honestly like 25 people in my building who own businesses, who are news reporters, who are top trainers in the DC area. And so I think one of the things coming out of college, that network is you can't really put a dollar sign on who you connect with and who you meet. And I'm not sure I would be able to do something that's similar if I was living in a home by myself.
Right. I like that. There's financial capital and social capital. I like the way you laid that out. And there's a sense lifestyle capital too. I
Yeah.
mean, when you rent, you have a little more flexibility. If young 30-year-old, 32-year-old Kendrick wants to up and move to South Florida because he's sick of these winters or sick to the humidity in DC, or he meets a sweetheart who wants him to move down there, it's much easier to up and leave when you're renting if you're still in that type of setting.
Exactly.
Now, if you're Nick, you know you're going to be in Charlottesville for a long time. It might make more sense there. Home ownership culture kind of says it's part of the transition to adulthood. Did you see it that? Say this is kind of you're a year out of college, year and a half out of college. This is a big step as you're going into the professional world. Was that important to you as part of this transition, or of kind of, okay, I'm now a professional in this world, I have a home?
I think for me, a big part of it is just like taking that next step of kind of having your own space and having the full responsibilities. Right now, I live at home, and you have a lot of times like meals are ready for you. A lot of the home essentials are there, whether it be stuff with washer, dryer, for instance, like always having those things ready to go. And I think I saw this as an opportunity for me to continue to grow and to take on more of those adult responsibilities. And uh, this first year was great. I had a chance to save a little bit of money, spend some time with the family, and really transition post college into this new role. And like you said, doing some things with Sanker Media, just filling my time to the brim, that kind of relieved me of some of the natural home duties that you have when you're a homeowner. And now that I feel like I've gotten my rhythm, got my feet under me, I think it was appropriate to move to this next step of growth for me at a personal level of, all right, let's take ownership of my own space, of my own home, of my meals, those kinds of things, and grow up a little bit.
Yeah, it's true, because those responsibilities do come. And
Yeah.
some of the gray hair comes from lots of things in this world, but some of it is from home ownership. There's
Mhm.
always something that's going wrong. And the bigger the house, people that want to dream about living at a farm and having a bunch of property and owning it, that comes with responsibility.
Yeah.
Kendrick, on the other hand, don't have to worry about all that. Somebody
Yeah.
else is gonna worry about that, and that there is truth. Thinking about that transition for a sec, Kendrick, maybe looking back 10 years plus, Nick over the last 5+ years, that transition from that high school graduation, that commencement into that next stage of life of college, away from home, and then the transition to the workforce in the early 20s. What went well for each of you? What, if you had to do it over again, you might look at things a little bit differently? And what advice, maybe, in the context of what advice would you have to a 17 or 18-year-old right now?
I'll let you
Kendrick,
go
go
first.
first.
What went well for me, both were rocky. So I can't say both were very rocky. Like I didn't get accepted into anywhere but Hampton. So that was a rocky transition. And then I guess after college, I didn't get my first job. The last interview I had during that summer of 2016 was with USA Today. I had interviewed at maybe 20 places before that. So I can't say that I had the smoothest transition from high school to college or college to the working world, but I would say the one thing that helped me stay steadfast was um, just praying that everything would work out, knowing that everything would work out eventually. That really kept me on track and looking forward. I would also say just having an open mind to accepting opportunities that, hey, this might not be what I'm looking for, but who knows what might come from this, whether it's going to university where maybe I wanted to go somewhere different, but, or whether it was going to a job where it was like, this isn't my dream job, but let's see where this takes me next. That kind of perspective helped me move forward as well.
Yeah, I want to double click on his stuff. I think that one of the things that he did really well is, like you said, be open minded, be flexible, but at the end of the day, be willing to put in the work. I think that a lot of times when life gets a little more difficult for people, um, there's like a almost like a victim mindset where things aren't going your way. And at the same time, I think it's your responsibility to what is it they say, like luck comes to those who whatever, what's the word,
I'm not gonna say work for it.
where yeah, I mean, like when you kind of create your own
Yeah,
luck.
make your
Yeah,
own luck. Yeah, you
yeah,
got to be
and
ready for it when
yeah,
luck
you
when
create your
luck
own luck. That's
approaches.
what I was looking
Yeah.
for. But he was working. I mean, I stayed with him for a little bit. I did an internship with Kendrick, and he would be up at 5:30 every day, and in the office at like 6 a.m. And then he would come home at 10 p.m. He was studying, learning how to embrace his new career, how to pivot in life, and he literally would not see the light of day. So much so that his skin started, like, whenever he would come home and get into the sunlight, his skin would get all inflamed because it hadn't been outside all day. He would be in the office literally the entire day. And so I just want to reiterate that there's going to be periods where you have to put your head down and grind, and things aren't going to go exactly smooth. Things weren't necessarily smooth for a little stretch for him, so he had to put in the work, and he's been reaping the benefits. And I think that that's something that I really looked up to, was just putting in the work. And I think that's something that our dad really instilled in us, is the need to kind of put in the hard work, that it's not really, there's no really shortcut to have any kinds of success. And I think that that's something that he did really well.
Yeah, Kendrick, you talked about praying and how helpful that was. And what I've seen is in tough stretches or when success is happening, praying and having that strength of that relationship is just instrumental of keeping me grounded and keeping me going and keeping me with the right perspective. Maybe talk a bit for the two of you of how your relationships in this world, including a relationship with God, helps you through transitions and even the steadiness of life too.
Yeah. I know when I was applying for different jobs after college, just having friends that I could talk to through the challenges that I went through, even building a strong relationship with our father, that was someone who I went back to and saying, hey, what did you do? Did you go through something similar? Just to have a comparison. And then definitely just praying about certain things. It almost felt like, what's a good analogy? It almost felt like when people call it runner's high, like when you reach a certain like speed or you reach a certain distance and you're like just talking to yourself to get through it, and then after a while you don't feel it. I feel like we have the Sanker family boys and girl Lena, we have this workers high where it's like you go through a challenge and then it's just like no matter what you're just going to work through it, and then like you don't feel bad about it. You just work, you just get it done. It's just like a worker's high. It's like some people might feel bad about the I guess the opportunity that comes about it, where it's like, oh, like I hope things work out. I don't know, something in the family, we just like, all right, well, we're already here. This sucks. So we might as well work through it. And you see it in a lot of the different Sanker boys in Atlanta, when they go through that, like, oh, like that's probably like a really bad thing that they're going through, but they're just, they're just pushing. They're moving through it.
Nick, you talked about internal and external motivation earlier. What is that? Is that something that was nurtured when you're in something that was developed through your upbringing? Or is that something that's just at the core of what makes you guys Sankers?
Yeah, I think
Or a little bit of both.
there's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that we definitely a lot, some more than others. Everybody has a different personality, have some kind of like intrinsic internal motivation to just strive for big things. But I think that a lot of it also just comes from our parents, especially our dad. I think that his story is really special in that he came from a really rough upbringing. He worked his tail off and was, through God's help, able to do a lot of amazing things in his life, despite the challenges that he went through. And I think his mindset and the way he raised us is that when we face different challenges, he continued to remind us that you just make the most of where you are. You just continue to do your best. And that excellence is you try to do the best that you can do no matter what it is, whether it be cleaning, academics, sports, and that repeated message over and over, and that high standard is something that really became ingrained in what we did, whether it be him holding Jonas out of basketball because he needed to get his grades from having any C's to all A's and B's, or whether it be uh, growing up, like we couldn't have any TV time until we read a book or something like that. Um, those kind of levels of excellence throughout all areas. Whenever we had to do chores, we always, he didn't really care what chores it was. It was whatever mom said, but it had to be to the standard that mom said. And having those standards and expectations and holding people to it, and levels of excellence, I think was a really big part of it, because then it motivated you to do a good job, whatever you did. I also think that at the end of the day, um, when you don't have necessarily things given to you, or you have to do sports, a lot of times I feel like parents, like with sports, they're like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or whatever you want to do in life, and they kind of like give you things that you should be into or should want to do. Our parents didn't really have things that have us pursue. Let me think of how I want to say this. We weren't forced to play sports. We wanted to play sports. And so if we wanted to be really good at sports, we had to go out and train. They weren't going to sign us up for a billion things to train.
Mm.
And so that reverse of, because you're not forced to do something, you have to choose to want to do it and to be great at it. That helped you build up that muscle of internal motivation and discipline to go out and pursue and chase things and chase success and chase excellence in these areas. Same thing with college. We didn't have like, oh, you're gonna have your college paid for. No, like we're like, dang, we need to go get a scholarship, or dang, you need to go make some money. And so that necessity, especially for young men, to have to perform, I think is huge, because that pressure helps men step up and like take it to the next level. I don't know if you have anything else you would say there.
Only thing I would add is just having parents like George and Jeanette, like
You won the lottery.
like they are true underdogs, in the best way put. Like Jeanette coming from Germany, like being a nanny, finding George, like no college education, just like that's an underdog story. And then you have George, where I got the blessing of, living with him while he was at Georgetown, and then like UVA, and just watching him as an adult, him telling me and reminding me, like, man, there were some months where like I didn't know where the money was coming from. You put yourself in the mindset where it's like no matter what hell on earth you might be going through, you got no excuses. Like they made it happen, so pull up your
Yeah,
pants.
they give you perspective, they give you inspiration, and that hunger. I think I see amongst all you siblings, and with your mom and dad too. It's that the coaching, that sharpening that they did with you all the time, and you guys did amongst each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's iron sharpening iron that way. But you had that role model there that you always were able to look up to
Yeah.
and see and motivate you that way.
Yeah.
Um,
One
go
thing
ahead.
on that too is important to note that our parents did have a lot of underdog stories where they would continue to need support from others and from God. I think throughout their story, they continue to iterate or reiterate that whenever they were in a situation where they were almost like, I don't know what we're gonna do, it seemed like God always had something in mind for them that they didn't even know was coming, whether it be a little bit of support, or whether it be a transition in life to a different career, or I mean, a lot of people say like, I don't know what I'm gonna like. I don't think I'm prepared to have kids. They had a lot of kids, and
and never were prepared.
and they were never prepared.
Yeah.
They didn't have money. I think they made like $15,000-$20,000 a year when they had Jonas and I, and they were living off of food stamps. Like, no one in there, like, no one today says that sounds like a good time to have a lot of kids.
I know.
And throughout that whole process, there was an innate trust that God will take care of you. There's the verses that talk about like even the birds are provided for. And I think while you want to have that kind of like underdog mentality for motivation, they did a great job of balancing also that trust that God is good, God will provide, and he has a greater story, and his will be done. So I think that's something to also keep in mind.
Yeah, there's a great image I always have. The old movie with Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Towards the end, he has to pass some series of tests, and there was one where it was an invisible bridge, and he had to believe that that was there. And so to get across this big gap, he had to take a step of faith, knowing that there was a rock, there was a foundation right there. And that's what I kind of think of with that. You don't see it. You don't know tomorrow. We don't know what it's going to bring, and I'm not sure where food or whatever's going to be provided, but you take that step. And I don't know if I'm ready to have kids, but what a blessing. They took that step, and boy, how they've been blessed with how many kids now? 14, 23? And all those kids, and how close you are because of that too. I mean, you guys, it's remarkable to see how close you are as you've transitioned into adulthood, and that's fabulous. Step away from the family dynamic, a little more cultural.
Yeah.
If you're a superintendent or a head of school at the high school level, or a president of a college, knowing what you know now, what would be some of the policies you'd put into place? What would be some of the themes? What would you like to see to assist, knowing what you know right now for that level of kind of education and training, and even with youth sports too? If you were a leader of a big youth sports program, how are you diving in and pouring in, and what's your perspective there?
Yeah, I was looking at it from I guess, professional career perspective initially. It was at Hampton, they had these leadership groups and they had these social groups. Looking back now as an adult, I wish those weren't optional. I wish they were mandatory. I wish your freshman and sophomore year wasn't optional if you wanted to be in like some fashion of a leadership group. I wish it was you have to put yourself out there. You cannot hide from your peers or your classmates. You are required to be in some form of a leadership group or a social group. Because now looking back, building those connections, to me, from college, though, that network is the most important thing. Getting out your circle and meeting as many people as you can is like one of the most important advantages of going to college. So I wish that was made mandatory.
Yeah, I think that's definitely great. I think what I would do is take the technology out of the classroom and remove distractions. I think one of the things that this younger generation is really struggling with is the ability to focus, and a lot of that is because technology has constant stimulus and distractions. And I think that the other thing with that too is like cheating is prevalent everywhere. Like not nobody. There are a lot of people. I would say the majority of students nowadays just cheat through everything, and that's teachers enabling that by providing routes to do it with technology. If you put a piece of paper in front of them and say they have to produce something with just that piece of paper and a pen, no computer, makes it a lot harder to cheat when it's an in-person right there in front of you. Or even just like doing oral presentations, when they have to stand up in front of you and explain something to you, a concept, it gets a lot harder to cheat. So I think providing the avenues for more focused, intentional. I don't think you have to do as much. I think you could divide the content in half or even a quarter of what they try to teach you. you don't need to retain a ton of information nowadays. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to think, speak, write clearly, and think critically as we go into this next generation. Because at the end of the day, right now, information is abundant. And now it's being able to work with that information and work with other people that's going to help people kind of move on to this next step. I think the second thing that I would do is actually provide the second thing I would do is actually provide real practical life like teachings, like
Yeah.
how to go about with your finances.
Yeah.
Like when you come out of college, like I didn't know how to make a budget. I don't even know what like the general parameters are around that. How to create a bank account, how to get a credit card, what is credit, how to go about buying a home, how do utilities work, like all those basics of what become your life after college. If you haven't had your parents teach you that, which not everybody has a great set of parents, and I think if you can take a little bit of time to intentionally provide some of those provide some of those fundamentals for the next generation, that will help them kind of get out rather than being able to tell you who won the war in X year. Tell them this is what your credit means. And these are some of the things that are going to really hurt your credit, which is going to make it really hard to get that loan to buy a car, buy a house. And here's how you can avoid it. Stuff like that is huge.
Yeah.
And people don't even know what that is.
Yeah. How do we set students and young people in general up for success in the world as it sits today? I think is a key question that needs to be answered by everybody, all the adults in the room that are really responsible for and need this next generation to be there and be and to thrive, because we want our nation to thrive, but also as we get older, we need them to take care of us as well. And so it just makes sense as that's is being passed forward. I appreciate you sharing that. You brought up technology. I heard somebody that's been in the college space for 20 plus years professionally and has been really engaged coaching and mentoring young people said right now, no joke, 95% of our college students are addicted to their phone. True or not true?
It might be higher.
Might be higher.
True.
And I wouldn't limit that to college students. I would limit that. I would say general society is addicted to their phone. I mean, the way that people who build these technologies and build out the software that goes onto it in the apps, like they've done a really good job of making a very addicting device.
Yeah.
And has lots of consequences, in just your own self-esteem, and mental health is part of it too. It's one, it goes into your personality and how distracted you are and how your capacity to focus. It goes into relationships, the challenge of having person-to-person human relationships versus relationships that are online. And it's also expectations into the finances piece we were talking about earlier. Everybody else in this world on social media is doing so well. You don't see the warts and the challenges. And so you're comparing yourself, and that comparison monster is very challenging.
Huge. I think that this is something I was talking with you off the podcast, is just how there are so many unrealistic expectations that are generated by social media for whether it be what life after college looks like, what relationships look like, what the world is really like. When you see just the highlight reel of the world, it makes your world look a little bit darker. And that's just not good for anybody. And I think that's one of the reasons why this generation right now that's growing up on technology is having so many mental issues, is because they're in constant comparison. You know what they say, comparison is the thief of joy. And so I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, but I think that's like one of the biggest drivers of issues today.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to 2016 when I graduated and seeing all my classmates get their first job post on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm working at whatever the job might be, and how that really put me in a dark place where I'm like, man, like I wish I was in that group. And I can't even imagine what it's like now with how social media is and how people compare themselves to each other. So
Yeah. And I think too, one of the other things is, especially in the middle class, there are so many I'm thinking for the people that are in the years coming out after college, they kind of want to retain this great lifestyle that they've grown up on, and they've had their parents support them financially. Because at the end of the day, everything costs money. You're not going to be making that kind of money coming out of college. That's just not how it works. But there's a lot of people nowadays who are getting that money from their parents. Their rent is paid for their parents. Their groceries are paid for their parents. But you know what? Social media doesn't say that part of the story. And so I don't know, from a financial advisor perspective, maybe you can give some insights and like encouragement to the young people of just like the realities of a lot of young people aren't as wealthy or living as luxury as you think, and just how much support. I don't know how much support you're seeing from parents versus young people kind of thugging it out themselves.
it's a lot. Um, it makes me think of 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who is my age, but now at Columbia doing his master's for business school. Um, we were talking about relationships, and he was telling me like, man, a lot of these Columbia grads are just like at the grad school. They're getting this paid by their parents. Like, they're not taking out scholarships. Like, it's paid for by the parents. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, they're inviting me on these trips to Europe. And he's like, I'm I'm Ghanaian and I don't come from money. I can't go on these trips. Like, I barely can pay rent in New York. And I was like, yeah, you just gotta continue to keep the mindset that uh, you're you- you're not in the same space, and you got to budget accordingly. You have to tell them no. I think saying no is also a big topic that we might talk about, like the power
Yeah.
of saying no and separating yourself. Where like, if you don't say no, it will get bad. So that was just a genuine conversation where it's like, say no, understand where you're at, and move forward from there.
Yeah, there's a concept called lifestyle creep
Yeah.
too, where it's especially for young people, but it's of all ages. You get more money, you get your first paycheck after college or after high school, and you start working, and then you get promotion, and all of a sudden you sometimes make more money, you get that bonus, and as your income goes up, your spending
Yeah.
goes up even more. And so the stressor isn't necessarily lower income. The stressor is you don't have enough income to support the lifestyle that you want. Do you see that pressure amongst yourselves or amongst your peers?
Definitely.
Definitely say in DC. One of my one of my coworkers who's a financial advisor. This is like 8 years ago. And in our world, like in the financial advisory world, like you eat what you kill. So you can make a lot of money, you can make no money, you can make a little bit of money. And he would come into the office with these fly suits, and I'd be like, man, like you're in your second year as an advisor, like there's no way you can afford this. And he's like, Kendrick, it's not a spending problem, it's an income problem. I just have to make more. And I'm like, well, you're sort of not wrong, but there's a habit that goes into that as well that kind of eats at you over time.
You even hear that at the national level right now, and with Congress and our administration and our national debt and our annual deficits. We're going to grow our way out of our challenges instead on the revenue side, as opposed to, okay, let's look at our spending and what can we do or what can't we do, and that migrates down to personal behavior. I think too, as we see everything in culture, is it's okay to live off of debt. Some debt is okay. This is another piece maybe we could talk to young people about in our schools. Is debt scary? Not necessarily, but it can be a boogeyman as well. And I remember an old advertisement growing up with this middle-aged guy on a riding lawnmower cruising around this beautifully manicured property a big house, and he's talking about how wonderful it is with a boat and the kids doing well and doing a summer vacation, all these good things. And then he stops and looks into the camera and he goes, but I'm up to my eyeballs in debt. And that's how I'm affording all this. You know, the number of people that are even successful in this world that are carrying that credit card balances and are
you can
carrying
speak
all
to
these.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's kind of like our nation is we're a wealthy nation, but you look at our debt and our deficit, and it's whoa, it's astronomical.
I think working in the advisory world, what separates some of the best clients I have is those that understand good debt versus bad debt. Because to your point, there is good debt. Like I've seen one of my best friends who's an advisor. I've seen him use good debt to really build a phenomenal financial planning practice, like understanding interest rates in the term leverage and how that can propel you. That good debt can really do a lot of great things. Bad debt, to your point, like credit card debt, is not helpful whatsoever. Speaking vulnerably, personally, I've had, when I first started Sinker Financial, I had to get a credit card to pay for certain things, and it ate me alive. And there's still certain things that still eat me alive with the credit card debt. And it's like good debt, bad debt. Like just it's a math game at the end of the day.
Yeah, even with student loans, more and more people are really looking at that ROI. Is college worth it?
Yeah.
And
What would you say on that?
yeah, is college worth it?
We had this conversation earlier. I think college is worth it depending on the profession that you want to get into and the cost of that profession. So the profession that you want to get into and the cost for that profession. For example, like with me, my degree is in communications. I got a bachelor's in communications, a minor in journalism. Coming out of college, I had $100K of student loan debt. My first job at USA Today, my base salary was 39 grand. Terrible decision.
Yeah.
Would I've done things differently? Yes. Am I making up for that? I am now. And so I think like if you chose, like when lawyers get student loan debt for law school, I don't think that's bad debt. You come out as a first year associate at a big law firm in today's environment making 225 with a 10K bonus. We can come up with a game plan to pay that off in 5 years. That's good debt. You're the baseline person is not making 225 coming out of school, but you're making that. That's good debt. So like law, medicine, Nicholas can probably attest, even econ, certain degrees that will put you in a place where it makes sense to take out that debt.
If you had to go back and do your situation again, knowing that, what are some of the different routes that you would have explored in like today's world? Like how would you go about it differently today?
It's interesting. I go back and forth with this because we talked about how we would change the education system, like if we were in that seat. I appreciated my communications classes so much. And looking back as an old head, I really value when I'm interviewing a kid for an internship program and he just speaks so eloquently. She just speaks so eloquently. Like, it gives me shivers. I'm like, wow, you really speak well. You can communicate a very complex idea and make it very simple. In my career as a financial advisor, you can be the nerdiest. I got my finance degree from Princeton and I know all this, but if you can't make something that's very complex, very simple, and be able to communicate that eloquently, you're done. And so I go back and forth because I'm like, would I have changed my degree now that I understand communication so well? How to really relay a topic? I don't know. My first clients come out of college in the financial advisory space. A lot of those clients, honestly, they were classmates of mine in that space. They were people who that's actually built my book of business, was reaching out to Hampton University people that I knew in my space that I could help with in finance. I don't know if I would have done things differently. So I go back and forth.
I think our culture's changing a little bit. It used to be everybody's got to go to college, and they just put loan paperwork in front of you and you sign it, and the expectation is you do it. But you don't even really know as an 18-year-old what you're signing and what the long-term commitment is to that student loan.
Yeah.
I think right now it's being talked about more, which is nice. But I do think it's incumbent upon those universities and others to really sit down and have a strong face-to-face, heart-to-heart counseling session and say, before you sign this, this is what it looks like, and what do you really think your prospects are? If one, you're pursuing a degree that won't pay on the back end, or two, you have no idea what you're going to do and you're going to college to figure it out, well, maybe the gap year, or figuring that out, doing something else before signing your name to something that's going to give you 5 and then long-term 6 figures of debt.
Yeah.
Nick, you were going to say?
I was just thinking, right now, a lot of the biggest struggles coming out of college are affordability, basic financial literacy and like skills, and then honestly, a very much changing dynamic job landscape, which there's a lot of uncertainty of what will be valued and what won't,
10
and
years from now.
that also goes hand in hand with the student debt that we just talked about. What were the biggest struggles when you came out of college that you faced?
Yeah, I'm going to show my age here a little bit, but I came out in the mid to late 90s, and a lot of that was, I think what we struggled is, I don't know if there was it was a struggle, but what I was thinking at that time was something that was giving me purpose. I had a couple of summers on Capitol Hill. I was thinking about, okay, I wanted to go save the world or find some sort of specific policies that I really that was interested in and wanted to pursue it. But I went to DC and I hated that culture. Everybody was me, I, and wanting to go up the ladder and trying to impress each other. And so I kind of went the opposite extreme and went and talked to the military recruiter and surprised most of my family and all of my professors at college, and went into the military and eventually did a career there. So I think there was a purpose dynamic. I can speak for me. Amongst my peers, it was coming from a small town in rural America. It was just gone through this farm debt, savings and loan crisis that took a lot of families down. It was, where do I reside? Where do I find the next phase? What's the importance of family here? And it was kind of wrestling with the culture of, do we go to the big city and live life, and moving away from what was an economy where homesteads and homes stayed close and you knew your cousins and your aunts and uncles, but with transportation and coming out of the 80s, people were excited about America, go find work some other place. So I think for us, there was a geographic challenge, and then just kind of, as what we're seeing right now as a challenge in my age group is, yes, yourself trying to find significance amongst success and keeping the mindset sound, but it's parenting down and then helping and supporting parents up, and it's putting a lot of pressure
That sandwich
on a
generation.
generation right now. Is that sandwich pressure that's squeezing a lot of people, and I don't know exactly where we're going to go with that, but I think that's a challenge we're having right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because I think something that's a pretty common theme right now is, like you said, with just like the parenting down and like relating to that next generation. And like we talked about before, it's like we think it's an affordability issue. Well, a lot of people that are generally a little older think of it more of a expectation issue. And so being able to connect those two sides and truly empathize with the other, where it's like, yeah, I mean, of course you can't afford to have your own home and have this luxury lifestyle that you see online, like, duh. But at the same time, you want to be able to connect with the two sides, because things are more expensive and it is trickier, and technology is evolving. So this landscape of what the world looks like today is very different. I don't know if you have anything else you would toss in there.
Now, I was gonna ask Dan.
Yeah.
because it's a topic that George and I always talked about, this new age of parenting and how it's changed from when you grew up and what parenting looked like. Um, I'm really curious to hear your answer on that.
Yeah, a few dynamics. One, it's a different world. One of the big challenge is just technology. We didn't have it back then. Or it was very, very young, and what people laugh at right now, what the Ataris and or some of the other things, even with the phones. We had the rotary phone. I'm that old, where we had that as a young. We had one line into the house, and your brother, somebody could listen in on the other phone while you're talking to a girlfriend or whatever it is, so that privacy wasn't there. But I think we were more human to human relational. We could jump on a bike and go across town or go someplace. We didn't have the fears in this world. It was more enjoying a sport and learning from each other and just kind of going out and playing. And we're going to play football for a while, and we're going to go swimming, and then we're going to go play some baseball. And certainly there was some supervision from afar, but we kind of just did each other. Now a lot of sports, you can't just go out and play. You got to be part of a program, and you got to travel. And if you want to do this, so
And
the
everything's
specialized-
filmed.
Everything's filmed, and the pressure. I think there's the pressure
So
on
much
young
pressure.
people now is there. I think, I say it's the great irony is there's so many more advantages. We have so many more opportunities in many ways, but it's more challenging to be a young person today with the pressures. I was talking to my son about this. I kind of harp on this technology and phone use all the time, but without the understanding of the reality of that. Kids can't make it in this world without having that and without doing some of that, because that's where his peers are. And I can complain and whine about Snapchat or about these other things, but if you pull that off, you're limiting. And so what you try to do is, okay, he's under my rooftop for another year or two before he's off. Let's talk about these things, and so he can learn it better learn about it and how to smartly navigate those challenges. Because when he's outside, so I think those are a couple of the big things that we're seeing right now. One other piece is just inflation is real with home ownership. It was much easier. I was just trying to think what I had growing up. My peers were able to go buy a house with a normal income in most cities, whereas these days it's really hard. You have to come with funds and a bonus or whatever it is to do that, and that's where the culture more and more is even saying, well, go ahead and rent now. 20 years ago, everybody was saying you gotta buy, you gotta buy, and now people are saying maybe renting is better. Part of it's an honest conversation, but part of it is the culture is just saying that because that's the reality.
Yeah.
A lot of young people can't do it, and there's a long-term tail impact on that I think we still are going to be wrestling with.
Yeah. Costs for certain things are going down. I'm looking at daycare costs. Like when you actually go through a budget with someone and you're like, oh no, daycare in DC is anywhere between like 15 to $2,000 a month. Like when I add that to your budget, this is the things you can't do because of it. It's a game changer. Or looking up, like long-term care planning for a parent. That's expensive. Like when we put that in the family budget, these are things you now can't do. Like cost of everything going down or up. There's a lot.
Kind of going back to mom and pop Sanker, they didn't have a lot, but they still chose to have kids. Right now, I think the culture is different.
Yeah.
Although maybe changing a bit. I see some anecdotal evidence, but for the most part, people are deferring the decision, one, to get married, and two, especially to have kids. And it's partly mainly because of the financial dynamic. It's expensive, and how do you make that work?
Yeah.
And so let's not do it. And there's again a long-term impact of that if we don't have enough kids to take care of the older folks in the future.
Yeah.
Ironically, also, I think it depends on which group you're in. Because like when I get connected to like Nicholas's group of friends, and we hop on a Zoom call or a FaceTime, and they're like, I got engaged. I'm like, man, these young kids are really getting engaged really young. And I'm like, sheesh, like they're really, getting
I'm
after
glad
it.
you're seeing that because I've talked about this, and anecdotally, I think there's more and more people. There's like maybe a bit of a counterculture.
There
I
is.
think there's more people that are leading forward right now, and I think that's a good thing. I'm encouraging it partly because I waited a little bit longer, but the longer you wait to have kids,
The harder.
it's less likely I'm gonna have a strong relationship with my grandkids one day. I get a little more tired. My energy level isn't the same with the 7-year-old, and just support amongst my parents, grandparents being engaged in my kids' life. The longer you wait,
Yeah.
it's more and more of a challenge. So I think, and just the long-term benefit and blessings you have in just not being lonely to have kids. And you see that even with this morning. I was joking earlier about it was kind of a chaos with some black ice issues and the dog doing some things the dog shouldn't do. But at the same time, you just kind of look. I got a wonderful kid that's smiling, another kid that's huge and growing and maturing. I got a beautiful wife, and that's what really gives a person something to live for, and the satisfaction is of having that. And when I'm 60 or 70, even more so, or older, not having that would be disappointing.
Yeah.
Transition into culture for a bit. You guys are both student athletes. The world of college student athletes has changed a lot in the last 5-10 years. With the transfer portal, with student athletes being paid, what are you seeing? What's working right now? What's not working? And if you were appointed the commissioner of the non-existent college football league, what would be your answers?
I think that there needs to be more structure. I think that there needs to be almost like a collective bargaining agreement. And I think that you just need to separate football and basketball. It's a financial reality. Like it needs to be put into a different bucket than the rest of the sports. You can't treat all these different sports the same way.
Yeah.
There are very different financial ramifications on both sides. So I think there needs to be some kind of formal agreement between the schools, universities, and the players. That's more of like an employer kind of style, like the pros, in order to really put up uh, guidelines on what it can and can't work. Because, I mean, even just with eligibility, it's so fickle. Like, you can have people coming back for seventh, eighth years. What does eligibility truly mean then? And then with the other sports, I think that there's a sense of like what financially makes sense. Should they be more transitions towards club sports, or should it be even just the fact that they want to focus more on geographic like centrality, like play teams closer to you? That will save you a lot of money rather than playing like a national schedule. I think that that needs to be the questions. And like you said, at the end of the day, people are like, oh, we can just make more money. We can just ask for more donors. But you have to think about a sustainable solution. And so creating sustainability for the non-profitable sports by reducing costs and maybe getting more donors in that way. But for the sports that generate revenue, you need to put up strict and clear guidelines that I would say promote the ability to have guys play in a program for multiple years. I think jumping around in this free agency every single year is a problem that they need to really address.
Kendrick, I guess on that point, you both played football in college. With the reality of today, what advice are you giving to a young person, or how do they wrestle with it? They all of a sudden they get a ton of money that they've never seen before as a financial manager, in an advisor in that sense. What are you working with them, and then even on the coaching mentoring piece, as kids are bouncing around, they're not getting that development,
No.
and there's a mindset of jumping is good, and you're chasing something other than potentially the development that you're no longer getting.
Yeah. Um, I think there has to be a mindset shift. I'll start there. There has to be a mindset shift. You have to understand where the program's going, who to trust from a coaching perspective, family perspective. Um, if I'm an athlete today, I start thinking about is this a program that I think I can grow in, and how long do I want to stay? Um, Beyond the program is the education that I'm going to get here also good, because outside of football, not everyone's going to make it to the next level. And I think that has to become apparent. I think when you get money from a college, for whatever reason, that makes you think you're guaranteed to go to the next level when that's not the reality. So I think that reality has to sink in.
Especially with football, there's always been a perception that they're there to play football and it's a business and they're really not going to school. And there's some truth behind a lot of that. But I think it's maybe even gotten worse or more even overt in your face now. I saw an interview before the national championship game. Carson Beck was asked, "So what's it like going to college? In what were your classes like in the last few weeks prepping for this?" And he kind of looked and said, "I've graduated. I'm not going to class." And I think more and more. I mean, are some of these 24, 25-year-olds even going to class, or is their class just going to work out and it's really become a professional program? And if they're being paid six figures, seven figures in some instances, do you really want them spending all this time in class when they're not being paid to go to class?
Yeah. I mean, if you're at the grad level, especially the grad student level, you're probably doing like what, 3 classes a week?
I have no idea for graduate school.
They're not doing that many classes, so their job is football at that point. You asked about other things that we're talking to them about financially. You got to think of yourself as a business. Like everything you do is a business, from traveling to buying products to training to food to whatever. Like everything is a business expense. So changing your mindset to know that, all right, I'm a business. I have to treat myself as the employer and the employee. I have to set up certain structures. I have to set up certain boundaries. I have to learn things for the first time. I have to learn how to communicate to other people, how to compensate me and where to pay me. I have to understand taxes. Taxes is a big thing. Because as Nick had shared, and I can attend, I didn't know a thing about taxes or investments or savings or budgeting or retirement planning. And so, unfortunately, you have to learn that earlier because you are now still in school, but also sort of out of school at the same time. So,
Yeah.
What just to kind of close this out a bit, one more cultural topic first. Talked about the challenges of young people today into the workforce and what jobs will be there, will not be there. Everything is changing very quickly. With machine learning, artificial intelligence coming to this world, how fearful? I mean, what is the anxiety level amongst 20-somethings right now that this, where I'm working right now, that job might not exist in 5 years, and technology is going to take it over. What do I do then?
strangely enough, I get the AI question more from like 30-year-old, 40-year-olds. At least like calendar year 2026. I've probably had like a couple hundred meetings this year so far. That AI question is probably one of the top, but it's the 30 and 40-year-olds. Less of the 20-year-olds.
Is it talked about it in that context? I know you're talking about technology and AI when you were in college, Nick, but at Princeton, were they saying, hey, you need to be smart with what career you go because these industries or these startup jobs might not even be there at some point?
I think my perspective is a little skewed because I was around some of the best and brightest in the world, that they're going to find a spot to work. It might not be the exact spot they want to work, but they'll find a spot eventually. Now, at the same time, there's been a lot of them that have struggled getting that job that they want, which has caused problems. And it's not that they can't get a job, it's just they can't get the jobs that they want. And so I think there's a little bit of frustration there. But I think a lot of times the problem with college students is that they're not even thinking that far.
Nah.
Yeah.
They're just trying to enjoy college. And once they get to senior year, then they can start to think about it. And so, like you said, I think that it's a graduate problem when they've been out of college for a year and they're like, dang, like I still can't find a job. And they're living at home and they're just
finally
like,
hitting them.
and it's finally starting to hit. Now, an interesting take that I've heard about this, though, is that the problem isn't that technology is replacing these people, it's that these young people aren't
Lack
qualified.
the skills.
They
Yeah.
lack the focus, they lack the skills. Like I said, so many college students are cheating. So they come out of college and they haven't actually learned anything. Also, they haven't, because everything's done on technology and it's not really face-to-face interaction, they haven't developed the social skills. And so these students coming out are less qualified than hiring some guy that's 28 that actually had to learn things or had to work face to face for a while. And so when you're looking for a new hire, a lot of, I feel like, employers are looking for guys that are a little older that, all right, like, these guys have been in the workforce for a little bit. They have some skills. Um, I'm gonna have to train somebody up, whether it be the college or this person that's a little older. I'll go with the person that's a little older. So, I've heard that the problem is the narrative is that young students are kind of getting screwed over because of AI. But when you take a step back, you have to really kind of take a deep look. Is it a correlation between AI and technology and these young students that are coming up having trouble getting job, or is it causation? Because there's two very different kind of things going on, and just because technology is improving does not mean that that is the cause.
I love what you're saying there, and it gives the adults in the room, they need to step up and properly pour into the young next generation
Absolutely.
and how to utilize AI smartly. It's there, or whatever the technology is, but you still have to develop human beings
Yeah.
to be successful in this world. And I
Absolutely.
think we're failing on that a bit. And if you're saying that, I knew cheating was apparent. I didn't know it was as rampant as you seem to say amongst. And I know it with high school and at colleges and probably throughout. I've heard a lot of anecdotal things. Even some professors is kind of a deal. You get some good grades and you give me some good ratings on the course, and we all win-win. Well, learning's not happening then. And
Yeah,
do
professors need to
young
step
people,
up. I
yeah,
mean, plain and simple, like
or
they're not holding students to the standards that need to be held to. And a good professor will hold students to a higher standard. Now, the students might not like it initially, but they'll appreciate it in the long term, just as
yeah,
you do any hard
anything
coach.
else. Yeah, a good coach. You don't like a good coach challenge you and working you hard at the beginning, but then when you see the growth
Yeah.
happen, you really respect it. Those are the ones later on that you really appreciate.
Literally.
And so I think if colleges don't step up better and high schools don't step up better, parents and individuals are going to find other ways to do it, and maybe colleges aren't as important
Yeah.
anymore, and you're going to find it by going directly to companies or going directly to other programs. And I'm hopeful the entrepreneur in you needs to continue to look at different ways we can harness that demand that's out there, that's real.
It's a collective effort, in my opinion, too. It's like when I look back, even Nick can probably attest. Like there's a lot of different areas where you embrace the suck. Like
Yeah.
our parents, we went through some chores. Like we went through some summers that sucked. And on the football field, to your point, favorite coach, hated him. Embrace the suck. In the classroom, one of my favorite teachers, ugh, did not like him. Embrace this. Like so it's like from the classroom to the football field to how parents parent you. It is very much collective effort,
Yes.
and I think just that teamwork on all three sides is changing.
I love that. And it's the 45th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice 1980 hockey team. U.S. victory, got the gold medal in the heart of the Cold War. And you look at that and you see the documentary that just came out or the old movie Miracle, that coach, Herb Brooks, I mean, he worked them hard. There was no friendship there. He was a coach that pushed them at the time. They didn't get it. They didn't understand it. But it set them up for success in the Olympic Games. And now, as they were all talking 45 years later, the respect they have for the late Herb Brooks is amazing. And their entire culture, our entire society does, because he worked really hard. Let's land this plane more personally for you guys. What we talked about the past and what you learned, where you are now. What do the next 12, 24 months look like for you? Where are you going in this world, and what are you thinking about?
I mean, for me, it's becoming a homeowner. I think
Yep.
learning what that takes, learning how to take care of a home, whether that literally be renovations, creating your own meals, building those routines and rhythms. I think that's what it looks like for me. And then on the other front with work is just continue to develop, continuing to learn and grow what it takes to be a private equity analyst and an associate as I take that next step, hopefully, and continue to develop there and learn the skills, learn how to communicate like I have over the past year, but learning a lot of technical skills and what it takes to get deals done. I've got great mentors in my firm who have poured into me and want to just keep being a
Yeah.
sponge. So
Success comes in the grind. You've talked before about the first year in this job's kind of like being on the scout team and getting battered and working really hard and doing whatever is needed. That's a great mindset. Princeton grad, a great job. You're not sitting in a corner office drinking coffee and looking over portfolios. You're working your tush off,
In the
and
fire.
and that's where learning happens, and that's where growth happens. That's where future success happens. That's great. Kendrick, what's success going to look like for you in the next 12 to 36 months, other than moving to Charlottesville? I'll-
The best way I can put it is just honestly just embracing my 30s. I think in your 20s you hear a lot about, well, you don't really feel like you're kind of settled into life until your 30s, or at least I've heard of that a lot. And I'm really starting to feel it on many different places. Financially, I feel at a better place. Professionally, I know where I've come from and the experience that I've gotten from the career that I've created, and I have an identity of where I want to go in terms of who I want to work with, what the company should look like, how I want to build it. And so it's just for me these next 12 to 24 months, embracing my 30s. Me and Nick have High Rocks coming up in a couple of weeks, so like embracing things that I don't like to do, like running, making sure that I'm staying healthy, making sure that my mind is on point and I'm being disciplined with staying focused on anything, just staying focused on the task at hand. So embracing my 30s, moving well professionally, and hoping I don't die in this race that we have coming up.
Young men like you is what gives me and my generation hope and optimism and excitement about what's coming in the future. Nick, any final words?
I would say just continuing to um, remember, like we've been blessed in so many ways, and that at the end of the day you can work really hard and it's not your works, it's gotta be God's work. And so one of the first things too that took some adjustment is like when you get a real salary, you're like, oh, I finally had some money. But then you go to tithe and you're like, that's giving away a lot of money. And I think that you have to remember that it's not yours,
Not yours.
and all these accomplishments that you get and create, it's not yours. And I think that remembering that God is at the center of it all, and that it's just all blessings, and you're on borrowed time and borrowed material goods of the world, is something that it's easy to forget, and that it's not your creating all these things. It's God working through you. So keeping that mindset and the humility that comes with it is going to be something that's important because it's easy to forget.
Yeah. And that brings true as you look at this, it's a finite world. It's a fragile world. What brings um satisfaction to a life? It's doing those things. What keeps the anxiety level down as you go through COVID or go through transitions? It's that rock, it's that foundation, it's your relationships, it's the faith in God, and there's more to this flawed world as well. Well, thank you for entering the arena here literally today, but also just being engaged in the arena of your own lives. Keep passing it forward. You've been blessed, and it's a responsibility to keep blessing others.
Like
All right. Love you guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.